so that folks who are not able to join us today can watch the recording later. And you can also watch it later and share it with your friends as well. In a little bit of housekeeping in terms of how to participate in the session today. So at the bottom of your screen is a chat button. You are able to chat, type in a question or a comment. And thank you for bringing that up, Matt. We cannot see or hear any attendees on purpose, just to protect folks' privacy. So you should only be able to see Kayessa and me right now. Without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. But again, please feel free to type in a question or a comment in the chat, and we will be able to see that. So I'm going to take myself off the screen and turn it over to Kayessa. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending part of your solstice with me. And I just learned the other day that the Earth is, I think it was 23.5 degrees tilted from the sun. And so when it goes around the sun, that's why we have the solstice. And this is the shortest day of the year. And for a lot of it's a time of change, a time of going deep. So for beginning, let's go ahead and just take 3 deep breaths. You know how I love to do that. So we'll breathe in and we'll hold that breath. Breathe out real slowly. Now hold it down at the bottom and then breathe in and hold that breath. Breathe out slowly. Now wait before you breathe in again. Hold that breath and breathe out slowly. And this is totally relevant to writing because it's not just the words, especially when you're reading your own work or you're performing in a play, as some of you have been. It's the spaces between the words that also creates a communicated stream. And when we take deep breaths, we're telling ourselves we don't have to hurry, that it's all right. Every time you take a deep breath, you're massaging your heart. And who doesn't need a heart massage this time of year? It's a hard time of year. The holidays are really, really triggering for me. I have PTSD, so I have some terrible flashbacks. And they've gotten less. I've got a service dog. And ever since I've got her, whenever she's been with me, my Rosa, I haven't had a flashback any time that she's been with me, go all the way through. And I haven't had a nightmare go all the way through. She's been with me 16 years. Oh, amazing. So you probably got things that soothe you and things that help you. And one of the things I want to bring to you today are the writing prompts that have helped me the most. So I'm going to start off with a poem by Robert Frost that all of you will probably know. And it's being read here by a playwright from this area, from the Western North Carolina. His name is Dylan Wilson, and I just love his voice. And sometimes when I'm having a stuck moment this time of year, I'll listen. I'll listen to Dylan Wilson reading Robert Frost Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, and it'll open up my heart so that I can start breathing deep and writing again. So I really wanted to share that with you. And before Becky puts it on, a few minutes just to say hooray for Becky Perkins. She is here on her own vacation day just to do this. So thank you, Becky. And I'll turn it over to you for that video when you're ready.
Oh, you're so sweet. It's my pleasure. All right. No promises that this will be perfect, but we will give it a shot.
You can do it.
whose woods these are. I think I know. His house is in the village, though, and he won't see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake as if to ask, is there some mistake? But the only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
I just love that.
Most
I
people
just
have no clue that in
absolutely love that.
2023, the best
But we'll
way
need to get back to me now.
Find a
Oh,
Dewey.
sorry.
That's all right. This is the technical part. Now,
Listen,
one of my friends who's a
Robert.
great
you
astrologer
know,
person
you
says
good job.
Mercury is in
Which ones
retrograde.
aren't?
It's okay.
That's all right.
All right.
Mhm. Oh, you did good. Thank you, Becky, for doing that.
Sure.
Now, I love the voice and I love the words. And one of the things that's been helping me a lot through this holiday time, and those of you who know me personally know this is a big time, it's been to go outside. And I go outside after dark, partly because that service dog needs to go outside after dark. But every time we do, I look up, stars and the moon, and it's so dark and so deep. And I have a view of the mountains, the Black Mountains, with the moon right over it this time of year. And it's just the greatest comfort. And if you get a chance to go outside after dark and just breathe, it'll be a prompt for your writing and your healing that will help so much. And I also want to make you an offer right off the top, and that's to be your pen pal. If you want to share something with me by email, my email is healingartofwriting@gmail.com. And of course, it won't cost you a thing. So if there's anything you want to share that's about your writing process, about this time of year, I've found that it helps to have an audience that won't judge you, to have a friend who maybe doesn't even know you all that well, or maybe knows you intimately, will just kind of accept. When I was a single mother, I had to have a list of 22 people because I was needing so many things, so many different ways. But you can put me on your list. You can put me on your list. It's healingartofwriting@gmail.com. And I started thinking, how in the world did I survive? I mean, I was physically tortured. I was sexually tortured. How did I manage to do it? Especially on those holidays, because there's so many triggers. Especially when I was sitting at the family table with my perpetrator right over there, and we were all supposed to be jolly and happy. How did I do it? Now life is so different, and I miss so many of the people who are gone, and the challenges are very different. But in both cases, how I did it is much the same. I write, I write, and I write, and I write. I think it was Gary Paulson who said, write as a wolf eats. Ferociously. Might have been read as a wolf eats. But it's the idea is that you do it regularly if you can. And then when you really need that strength, you'll have the habit and the writing muscles built up. And there are three main things that help me enormously. The kinds of writing that I do. And I identify them as intensification, diversion or distraction, and incubation. And I'm going to define those for you. Intensification. If you have something laying on your heart, if you have a memory that comes up like that and is terrifying, if you have something so big that you can't shove it aside, then it's time for intensification. I used to call this pushing the memory. You sit down with the paper, and it's much better to do this by handwriting as you can, although some people will read it and send an email to themselves, and some people prefer the typing. But for me, it's much better to do it by handwriting. There's something about the communication between my mind and my hand that slows down the rapid fire thoughts. So intensification, you take whatever's on the top of that memory. Maybe it's the smell of cinnamon. Maybe it's the smell of Cornhuskers lotion. Maybe it's the way the Christmas tree looks. Maybe you don't even know what it is. You sit down and you start writing and you say to yourself, I want to know all of this. Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out. And you just keep going, because what you're doing is you're allowing the you are now to reach back in time and hold person you were then, and hold that person in your arms and allow them to tell you what's hurting them, things nobody else will ever listen to. You are the first listener, and it's bigger on the holidays than any other time of year, because there are some very trippy things that happen on the holidays. Sometimes it's loneliness. Sometimes you'll be sitting there and you won't be triggered by anything that reminds you of the past. There'll just be this incredible, deep emptiness, this feeling that all the rest of the world is having happy family parties. All but the rest of the world hasn't lost their favorite grandparent or their aunt or child. But you have, and you're miserable. Well, if you do an intensification, then you go deeper into that feeling. Write it out. Write about when you first felt that feeling. The first time you can remember feeling that miserable. Write about how you have lived with that feeling for so much of your life. And don't be afraid of it. And don't run away from it. If you invite that feeling of terror, of loneliness, of horror, to come in and enter your world through your writing, you have invited a part of yourself back into your soul and your heart. You're saying that you love all of yourself, not just the part that's pretty and makes other people comfortable, not just the charisma. Oh no, who was it? You remember Marilyn Monroe? Some of you will, some of you won't. She used to say, men go to bed with me and they wake up with Norma Ray. And that was her reason for having so many relationships. She wasn't just Marilyn Monroe. She was also Norma Ray. And accepting that part of ourselves is the first step. And loving on that part of ourselves is the first step. And listening to that part of ourselves. So intensification. Of all the ways of writing through the holidays, intensification probably takes the most courage. It takes the most courage, and it takes some kind of support. In order to do it, you have to make sure you've done your five senses. You've got something good to eat, something good to drink, something good to smell, something good. Make sure you're wearing comfortable clothing. You know, all of the senses have to be in place, because this takes all of you. And don't be afraid. Fear not. Fear not. Now, when you do it, you might find you're getting all worked up. And who among us hasn't had a parent or a grandparent or somebody say, oh, you're getting yourself all worked up? There's a reason. There's a storm inside you. There's a tornado inside you. Once you get it out on that paper, it's not inside you anymore. It's outside of you. You've processed through writing. You've loved on yourself through your writing. You've accepted that horror that was so awful you didn't even know if you could ever say it out loud. When you write it down, you've said it out loud to yourself. And intensification is important. It is so important. And if you want to do this and you want someone to read it, you can send it to me. If you want to do it, you don't want anybody to read it, let's do it. If you want to do it, you want to rip it into little shreds or set it on fire and throw it in the wood stove. All those things are perfectly fine because the first person to listen to you is you. And the first way to get it out of your own head, to get it out of your own heart, and to make what has happened to you that is unthinkable, inconceivable, and horrific become something you no longer have to process over and over and over again. It's to write it down. One of the reasons I don't have the flashbacks I used to have is because I've written things down. And that's one of my coping skills. I'll say, okay, I got a little piece of this. What's the rest of the story? You have to care enough for yourself and love yourself enough to want the rest of the story. Now, there's some times where this is impossible. You know, I think it was a poet named Christus who said, you don't live through a childhood like mine, you dodge it, right? I had some parts very beautiful childhood, but there's parts I would like to dodge. And there are times when dodging it is completely okay. Don't feel bad about dodging it. Oh my goodness, no. I call it diversion. And what I'll do is I'll have a series of comforts and some comfort poems. And when I'm going into my difficult places and I really need to pull it together because I have to go do something with somebody else, or I have to go to work, or I just don't want to go there right now, then I'll use distraction, diversification. And sometimes that's an activity, but sometimes it's a poem. And I'm going to read you 3 poems that I dearly, dearly love. They're from Homecoming, and the author is Vic Kantowski. Oh, he was one of my poetry professors, and he's still my very dear friend. So I'm going to read 3 poems to you, and they're poems that I can go to that distract me from my own swirling time of discomfort and help me tether myself back into the present moment. The first one he wrote for me and for one other person. It's called Cards in the Trash, for 2 young girls molested by their fathers. The wind plays with them now, turning them over one by one, pages of a book, the fairy tales you grew up on. The kind gray counselor, the little girl who befriended animals, who jumped with joy, playing old maid, crazy eights, hearts, torn leaves. Commuters huddled against a viaduct, waiting for the last train into winter. Read 'em and weep. 7 and 8 of the workday. Old jacks waiting for their inheritance. Tattered kings and queens. Aces. You thought, we're just waiting to hold your hand. My perpetrator also taught me to play poker. The primary perpetrator. And this has meant a lot to me. Because I've often thought, what would it be like? What would it be like to feel safe holding your daddy's hand? What would it be like to have somebody you could call daddy? What would it be like? And so that was healing to me. And the next one is called South Wind. It's also by Vic Kantowski from Homecoming. It's very short. South wind, all night long, a steady whisper, and snow has been melting in darkness. And then here's the last one I want to share with you from his group. It's called Far Galaxy by Vic Kantowski. Now, if you want, you can close your eyes. And while I'm reading this poem, I want you to feel it in your heart if you can. But this is a good time for you to do that. Stars. Stars. As if by magic. all of them strange, too many, too bright, too many blinking. Where's Orion? Polaris, the northern horizon. Flooded with light, we strain upward, open-mouthed, drinking in the sky. Myriad points, lighthouses, fractured atoms. What we were, what we shall become, as neurons spark and spark and spark again in some far galaxy. I absolutely love to go out and look at the stars. Part of it's because as a child I slept under the stars whenever I could. But part of it is because it reminds me that we are so much more. I have strong faith and that helps me. But it reminds me that we're so much more than what's happening right this minute. And so you're going to have some choices. You might have some choices about whether to maybe watch something on your TV or on your computer or something like that, that kind of distractor. And that's all right. But you might have some empowering distractors when you feel that rush of worry coming. There might be some things you can reach for yourself. And if you would like to, I'd love to know. I'd love to know what things are helpful to you. When your mind starts racing and your heart starts pumping and you don't want it to, you don't have time to go deep. You don't have time to process. It takes the edge off for you. And these poems are actually prompts for my own writing. They'll pull me into a different kind of writing, a different level of comfort. You see, on the holidays, I have so many people on. I was the oldest grandchild, and so I got so lucky. Got to know great grandparents, all the cousins. We grew up together in a space that was fairly close. I mean, everybody gathered in this Kansas City area, a little town, and it was wonderful in that way. And so now one of the hardships is that most of those people have passed on, you know. So, and even though you can hold them in your heart, they live in your heart. For some of us, they live in heaven. We still want to hug them so much. So that's one of the hardships. And you can sit down and pick one of those people and write every memory you've got of them, everything you can remember of them. And you can keep that for yourself, or you can give it to somebody that you wish could have met them. You know what I mean? Because there's people in your life that you want to give to other people. And you can't because they're not alive with you anymore. That's hard. But if you write them, if you tell about them, if you share what made them important to you, then you can give that as a gift. Maybe it's telling your own child about someone who's a great grandparent. Maybe it's just telling about a neighbor, an experience. Pick something. I write chicken soup stories, and that lifts my heart. And that is the distraction from the pain and the suffering and the hunger and the horror and the loneliness. So you have a choice. You know, you can do the doom scrolling and the watching the news or reading the news or whatever. Take a minute, put that aside. Think of what's helped you. Think of what's healed you and write it down. Send it to me if you want to. Send it to yourself if you want to. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I do not tell this to everybody, but this is a special group here. I have an email that is just for things I want to tell myself. And I'll write stories. I'll wake up from a dream. There'll be something, and I will write it down because I know I'm going to go on in my workday, and that'll be gone. But if you write it down and you send it to yourself at an email that's only for that purpose, then when you need, you can go back there. You can mine that source for all kinds of things. You can, if you're a fiction writer, you can mine it for things for your characters. And you can also remind yourself of other ways of thinking and other ways of being than the one that's got you locked in when you're having your most deepest troubles. It's a way of being your own buddy, right? And now here's the third one, incubation. Oh, do I love incubation. I have my children. I've got a son and a daughter, and I have them to thank for knowing about this. You cannot create without having a time of incubation. And when you look like you're doing absolutely nothing, that rest is part of the creative process. So you're not just sitting around doing nothing. You're incubating the new ideas that are going to come. You just tell yourself that. You make that big hot bath and you go sit in it and you think, I do like this incubation. It's part of your writing process. So I have something that I really, really want to share with you. And it is another video. It's longer. And what I want to ask you to do is to pick up your pen and paper if you've got it. Now, however you write, however you do it for yourself is fine. But if you've got that, pick up pen and paper. And while you're watching this, if any thoughts come to your mind, if any connections come to your mind, go ahead and jot it down. This is Saving Valentina. And it actually happened to some people that live nearby me. George and Whitney Brassington went out for a very special adventure. And this adventure resulted in a complete change for the life of one very important ocean creature. And this, what I'm sharing with you now, is one of my distractions from pain. And it's one of my reminders that when we work together, we can save each other. We can help each other. We can be there for each other. And sometimes we go from a lower frequency of being to a higher frequency of being. And the people and things that used to resonate with us don't fit. Now, it might be that they fit later, it might be, but there's a disjunction. And that can be a time of great loneliness. And it can also be a time of great creativity. We all, different times, need the help and the love and the support of other people. And I want you to be thinking this way as you watch Saving Valentina. I'm going to turn it over to Becky. Becky, have you got that one queued up?
Yes, I sure do.
All right. Is this a good time to go ahead and do it?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm Gershon Cohen, co-founder with Michael Fishback of Earth Island Institute's Great Whale Conservancy. Michael spends 2 months in the Sea of Cortez every winter, photographing blue, finback, and humpback whales to help track these magnificent animals across our oceans while observing their complex behaviors in the wild. On Valentine's Day in 2011, Michael, his family, and a few friends were presented with a rare opportunity, a chance to save the life of a humpback whale. Their efforts were captured on film. Here's their incredible story.
Yeah, you definitely
want
want
to
to
video as much of this as you can. Because
I am.
is, we need to use this to help these animals. On Valentine's Day, while plying the waters of the Sea of Cortez, I came upon a young humpback whale that appeared to be dead. We floated next to the whale for several minutes, but we saw no signs of life.
How old is this whale?
Suddenly, the whale rose slightly in the water and forcefully exhaled. I decided to ease into the water with my snorkeling gear in order to assess the situation.
Yeah.
I quickly discovered the whale was severely entangled in a gill net of the type used by local fishermen. As I swam alongside the animal, our eyes met. There were no words we could share, but I wanted to let the whale know that we were there to help. It took some effort to stay focused given the great emotion of the moment. The sight of this large and beautiful creature trapped and so close to death was almost overwhelming. And I must admit I was a bit scared because I knew the whale was frightened and fatigued, but could still kill me with one panicked movement. The situation was indeed bleak. The tail was entangled in so much gear it was weighted down a full 15 feet below the surface. Both pectoral fins were pinned to the side of its body, and the nylon gill net went all the way up the whale's back, forward of the dorsal fin.
Yeah. He's freaking out. I got his dorsal fin free. That's it. His pack and his flukes are screwed.
I made a bit of headway, but it seemed too great a task, so I went back aboard to radio for help. We were told that perhaps in an hour someone else would arrive, and we all knew that by then it might be too late. While I was working around the pectoral fin, my boatmates George and Guero had managed to get some of the net pulled over the side of our panga. I came back aboard and we pulled and cut the net as fast as we could. We were maneuvering the boat into proper position with a paddle and only had one small knife, but after great effort managed to free one of the pectoral fins.
Yeah, he knows what's going on.
He knows
You know
what we're doing.
He's got to be able to breathe too.
Oh no, she's right here.
Right on both sides. I'm going to paddle again. I'm going to paddle this around.
Sensing a spark of freedom, the young whale started to swim, taking us on a Nantucket sleigh ride through the Sea of Cortez for about a half of a mile.
Backwards
I'm
ride.
being taken for a ride by a whale.
No, you're good, you're good. Just make sure none of us are entangled.
The whale eventually tired and came back up right underneath us.
He's thinking of other.
We continued to grab more and more net and haul and cut, and after nearly a half hour, the other pectoral fin came mostly free.
Closer to the whale, otherwise he's still going to have all this crap on him.
And when the whale tired, we began cutting the net off the powerful tail fluke.
Come on. Oh my God, the fluke is upside down now.
Oh really?
He's trying to sound. Watch out, watch out, watch out.
Hold it.
No.
Shit, grab that pipe, grab that pipe.
I got the pipe. I got the pipe.
It's okay, hon.
Get it down below, get it down below. You gotta use the fulcrum.
Yeah, I am. I got him. I got it. I got it. I think you might need to cut it and let her go with it.
Finally, after about an hour of exhausting work, we decided we had enough net aboard to make the final cut. We were hoping enough net was off the fluke to free her.
The coal is free, the tail is free. Okay, cut. Keep going. Come on, keep going. Oh, it's so close. Cut, right here.
Pulling it off.
Did we get her?
Yeah.
Get it?
See?
Yeah! Yeah! We did it!
Yeah!
Let's pull it all in. You saved a humpback whale.
Oh yeah! What a good...
She slowly swam away, but about 500 feet from our boat, she breached high into the air. I cleared all the net from underneath the boat, and we headed off, 5 tired but exhilarated people with a boatload of nylon netting.
Free! Free to live life.
Yeah. Yeah!
For For the next hour, she provided us with an incredible full-surface display. We saw at least 40 breaches, as well as tail lobs, tail slaps, and pectoral fin slaps.
Wow.
We all believed it was at least a show of pure joy, if not thanks.
Mommy, I know what she's doing.
What is she doing,
She's
hon?
showing us that she's all free.
Yeah.
I think she's showing us a thank you dance.
I think so, Galen.
We followed her for about 4 miles over the next hour and said goodbye. Needless to say, we were all proud and thrilled that we saved this fantastic young life. It was an incredible experience that none of us will ever forget.
Okay, I got a little bit of an ID.
Did you
there.
get a little ID?
Okay, now we're gonna get a breach.
We're Michael, I'm on a movie.
It's all right.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Great
you for
whale
sharing that.
conservancy.
Now, you can go ahead and come on back to me. Thank you all so much for sharing that with me. I absolutely love that video. And even though it shows a terror in our oceans, it also shows the freeing of one creature from a terrible bondage that was going to kill that creature. And the man and woman who were there, George and Whitney, George told me that he almost didn't take his knife that day. It's like, oh, I won't need this. All he had to cut all of that off with was one little pocket knife. And someone asked if they can get a link to the video to share, and I can send it out to you. If you would like it, go ahead and send your email to me, healingartofwriting@gmail.com, and I'll send it. Or we might be able to put a link in the chat. But we might not, because I got it from them. I absolutely love this video because it's actually true. And how many times have you said to yourself, "Oh, I can't handle that great big thing. I don't have the tools." They freed a humpback whale from miles of netting, well, yards of netting that were killing it, with one little pocket knife. And at any point in time, that panga could have been overturned by that whale in a heartbeat. So what are you willing to risk to get your freedom? What are you willing to do to get your freedom? How can you say that the tools you have are too small? Right? And when I say freedom, I don't mean freedom from netting, obviously, but I mean freedom from the terrors of the old memories and the old times. And you know how that little child says, "Oh, look, it's a freedom dance." Mhm. So here's how this is a writing prompt for me. And in and of itself, it's just amazing. That event was amazing. The likelihood of them showing up at that place and time. mm, mm. Talk about a synergistic synchronicity. So here are the prompts from it for me. 1, what binds you? What is keeping you trapped? What aspect of being in this time and place? What holiday horror is keeping you trapped? And the next thing is, what are the tools you have to free yourself? And then, now I know I'm going really fast, but who can help free you? Who's in your corner? These writing prompts really matter. They really matter, especially if you're heading out to a holiday event with people who've told you to shut up and sit still. Maybe you need to change some of those holiday events. Or maybe you're one of the people who's created their own. Maybe you've got a potluck full of friends full of affirmations, or maybe like me, and you like to take some really deep writing time. And here's the part I love the best. I really do love this the best. You ready? You can create a thank you dance. You see, if you're here listening to me right this minute, then you're a pretty deep person. You're fabulous. Let's just face it. You're ready to live your stuff. And if you're here, you have some of the tools that you really need. And if you're here right this minute, in this time and place, those worst things that have happened to you, those hardest, most horrible griefs, they're not happening right now. None of that is happening right now. None of that is happening right now. You are in this minute, in this time, in this place, free. It's amazing. And it's a gift for yourself to write about it. And it's a gift for anybody else who's going through any kind of trauma, any kind of trouble, for you to write about it and for you to hand it off. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be fully formed. Maybe all you have is a pocket knife and you need to free a whale, right? But you can do it. You can do it. And that is so, so, so important. For some of us, I don't know how many times I've been told in my lifetime to just let it go. I've been told, why can't you be happy? I've been told, why can't you be happy like the rest of us? You're always bringing us down. You're always bringing up stuff that's happened. Always is a pretty big word. I have the capacity for deep joy. But for some of us, if we don't deliberately set aside time for intensification, if we don't do it on purpose at a time that we give ourselves, we'll swoop unbidden into our lives at awkward times and hijack us. And some of us, if we don't cut loose a little at a time, will end up immobilized, unable emotionally to move forward, frozen in our hearts. And that's one of the reasons why writing is so important. I like writing poetry, but I can't think in whole sentences. I like writing poetry and images and a little piece at a time, and then going back later and smoothing it out. Recollection and tranquility. What was it? Who was it who said poetry was strong emotion, recollection and tranquility? You've got the strong emotion. You're going to have the tranquility. And if all you have is a little pocket knife to free that whale, you can still do it. And you're going to do it. And not only that, didn't that make your heart lift up? When we see someone else helping another person, it helps us. When we see that, it reinforces our compassion and it reinforces our capacity. And the other thing, we've got a few minutes and I want to give time for if there are any questions. But another thing that is really important to this holiday as a prompt is music. If you want to sync yourself, you go listen to some music that has been meaningful in a time past with someone who's no longer with you. If you want to really sync yourself, and if you really want to go into that feeling, you really want to explore and expand that emotion, you can do that. And if you want to do something completely new, you can discover new music. And if they're happy memories you want over and over, well, for me, it's the Nutcracker Suite. For everybody, it's something different. And the music of Andrew Finn McGill. If you haven't heard of him, it's amazing. But everybody's got something that inspires them and helps them. You turn on that music, especially that holiday music, and you sit down and write. It doesn't matter what holiday you're celebrating. sit down and write. At one point, the holidays were so triggering for me, and I was having so much trouble with them that I started celebrating the holidays of other religions and other faiths. And it was my way of celebrating and enabling myself to have a deeper experience of love and joy and community without the triggers. So there might be something like that for you too. I'm so grateful you're here. Yeah. And I wanted to take a moment because I've talked nonstop and shown you the things that helped me for 45 minutes. Were there any questions that came up or any things that you really want to share? Becky, has anything come up in the chat that we ought to talk about or share?
We've had a couple of comments in the chat. Someone shared that for many years of their healing journey, writing was their outlet, writing poetry mostly. It's even healing to look back and see how far I've come since then and how the poetry I wrote transformed. The poetry I wrote back then was so dark, then lighter. Now I see and live in so much light.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Now I see in so much light.
Yeah.
That's right. Because it's the darkest evening of the year, and we need all the light we can get.
Yes.
One of the things that I also have done is to travel. And so one of the things I want to recommend, if you can, which maybe you can, maybe you can't, but if you can, go someplace you've never been. And it doesn't have to be France or China or Peru. Go someplace you've never been. Take your notebook, take your pen, go into a coffee shop in this town you've never seen before, or tea shop, and sit down and write. Go explore a museum you've never seen before and look at one painting and pretend you're living inside it. And then go to the coffee shop at that museum and sit down and write. If you go someplace you've never been, you're going to a place without any known triggers. And it can really, really, really help lift you up, help you feel more free. I love this so much. Now, do you have any more questions for me?
I do want to ask you just about the video. I do have the link. I don't know if you or the folks who filmed it are comfortable with me sharing it in the chat or how you
Yes,
feel about it.
please.
Okay.
Absolutely. I actually reached out to the people who first did the video and they were thrilled to have it used in this way. Now, there have been some who've said that it shouldn't be used as a metaphor, that that the trouble in our oceans with the netting and that the whales being trapped that way and the trouble that people's causing this, it's too powerful in and of itself to be used this way. But I think, I think it's important. And I think it really represents for me a deeper meaning, you know.
Great. I will also include that link in a follow-up email that everyone will receive tomorrow. So if you're not able to capture it from the chat, not to worry, I'll include that in the follow-up.
That's great. That's just great. I think that'll be a good idea. I'm going to share with you a couple of my secrets before we go. Is that all right? You ready? Behind me, just for today, just because it's Christmas, I brought, and Hanukkah and all the holidays, solstice, I brought two babies to share with you. This is, it's not exactly, well, it's, let me see if he does it. No, he doesn't squeak anymore. This is Baby Man. And he was the hero to all my dolls when I was a child growing up. He would go like this, Baby Man to the rescue, right? He was my hero. And this is Piglet. Now, some of you will recognize Piglet. You might recall that I told you once, and I won't share it this time because it's not a solstice thing, that I was called Big Eyes when I was a little child sometimes, and it hurt me. You know what helped me? Piglet. Guess who has pig eyes? Well, Piglet has pig eyes, and he's simply adorable, right? So this time of year can be a time of toys, and you probably have some toys that are remembered for you. Maybe you still have them. Maybe you had a baby man that rescued everybody. Maybe you had a piglet with those little pig eyes. Whatever you had, I want you to think on it, and I want you to write about it. And I want you to figure out how you can bring the energy of those toys and that playful time into your own life. Now, this, sadly, is not my original piglet. My original piglet, there was a flood. It's a long story. So I wrote to my Aunt Carol, who lives in Texas, and I said, Aunt Carol, I don't have Piglet anymore. And she said, oh, the spirit of Piglet lives on. And she made this with her own two hands, and she sent me another one just like him. So if you don't have your original babies, you might be able to have others just like them. And there's something else. I'm going here. Is it the holiday time? Is it time to hold on to the child inside of us? Right? Hold on and love on the child inside of us. So I'm going to share one more thing. Ready? Okay. This is one of my favorite children's books. And the reason I'm showing it to you is that here are some of the prompts I want you to use in the next month before we meet again. Tell me about one of your favorite toys. Tell me about a toy that meant something to you, or a person who made something beautiful for you, something that you cherished all your life, all your heart. And, okay, you ready? I don't care if you're 72, 92, 18, what. I would like to ask you to go pick up a children's book that you loved when you were little and open up that book and read it out loud to yourself. Get that book and put it by your bedside. Put it on your bedside table. And when you're having a day or a night, if you wake up from a nightmare, pick up that children's book and read it to yourself. Let the adult you read to you. And then, when you're in more tranquil space, sit down and write about it. Why was that the one? Here's a funny thing. When my children were little, I read them this book when I was young in the mountains over and over and over again. And it's a lovely little book. But I had no idea when I read this book to my children that I would someday find my way home to the mountains. And I believe that this book spoke so strongly to the little child inside myself who needed to find safety and safe harbor, that when I got old enough to decide where I was going to settle, where I was going to live, where I belonged, it resonated with me. And I'm going to read you the last page. Ready? When I was young in the mountains, I never wanted to go to the ocean, and I never wanted to go to the desert. I never wanted to go anywhere else in the world, where I was in the mountains, and that was always enough. And I want to give this prompt to you. Where are you? Where do you live? Is it where you want to be? Like plants, people have natural habitats. We have places where we belong. They're places where we can breathe easy. If you take me and you put me in the middle of a city, I might enjoy myself. Heaven knows I'll enjoy it. But I won't be able to breathe the same. And so Where is your place? Where is your natural habitat? Do you live there? If you don't live there, why don't you live there? Can you go there? Sometimes I think, I want so much to have a lake at my doorstep because I grew up that way and it was beautiful. But then I'll look out and I'll see the Black Mountains and I'll think, there's no other place in the world for me. I love my neighbors. And we're blessed to live in a time where we can travel. So I've given you a lot of prompts. I've given you a lot of things that I'd like for you to think about for the next month. And we'll meet again next month. Next month, there's going to be a poet here who's from the area where I live. And I want to share it with you. But in the meantime, I want you to make it through the holidays. I want you to be able to use this information to see things a little differently. This is a kaleidoscope, right? Sometimes when I'm really needing to change my perspective, I'll just look around at the light, diffracted and in a different way. So, bless you. Bless you. Happy solstice, or deep solstice, or dark solstice, whatever it is, it's your solstice. And I'm really, really glad we shared a little bit of this time here together. Once again, I want to keep you, and my email is healingartofwriting@gmail.com.
Thank you, Kayessa. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And like my dad always likes to say, he will, I guarantee he will say it to me, if not tonight, tomorrow, that the days are going to get longer now. They're going to start to get longer. Every year he says that. So it's a good thing to remember when it seems like it's dark, that the days are getting longer, even if it's cold.
That's right. That's right. And it's beautiful here right now. It really is. I don't want to say that too much because it's like what they used to call the 9-watt curse back when I lived in the Boulder area. You'll say how beautiful something is, and everybody packs into it, changes it.
All right, I am going to stop the recording.